out here for a walk today. Actually, I'm up in the Castlereagh Hills, right over Belfast here at the Craig of Glen, and I just thought I would stop for a minute and just obviously you can maybe see behind me here. But I'll try and show you in a minute. It's a lovely sunny day, and that's gorgeous. But this business I've been looking at and talking about how we look at things, how we take a time to actually look at things, and what I thought would be an interesting experiment. Just to take, I'm going to take some photographs on my little walk here. But what I'm going to do, I'm not going to look too hard. I'm going to stick out my hand and just make a photograph randomly. I'm not going to look at what I'm picking out, and then afterwards we'll look at those photographs and see what can we see in those photographs. What can we see that is interesting and visually exciting? So just how we can look at absolutely anything and make it something beautiful, if you like. So in the meantime, I'm going to try to give you a pan around behind me, and then we'll see what happens. So I took these what we're seeing now are two or three of the photographs that I took up in my walk in the hills, the Castlereagh Hills. And what I did, as I said in the video, was I just tried to reach out my arm with the camera. I didn't look at where the camera was pointing. I just clicked the camera, took a photograph, walked along a bit, took a photograph as randomly as I could possibly, so that I didn't, in a sense, have much of a choice as to what I was looking at. So in other words, these photographs are, if you like, a surprise to me as well, because I wasn't aware of what was being taken. So the reason I've done that is because I wanted to create something like the experience that we often get when we walk along and we discover something and we go, oh my goodness, look at that, perhaps for the first time. So when we do that, what I'm trying to encourage everyone to do is think about what happens then. So we can see what we've got here. The first shot is slightly over towards the city. And it's a fence, it's a barbed wire fence with a sort of hedgerow there and so on. Now, let's see as artists what we can appreciate or at least observe within this image. And this is where the exciting bit can happen. A very simple thing is we can zoom in. Now, yes, I'm here working with a digital an app, so I can zoom in here. You can see I'm zooming right in. But in reality, there's no reason why we can't zoom in literally with our eyes when we are out and about, which is something we very often don't do. We walk on past the image at this scale. Sorry, that's a bit too far. How about that scale? Hedge, that's great. Okay, what's next? And we move on. What I'm saying is this is the equivalent of me stopping and saying, let me look a bit closer here. Let's look at these this hedgerow, these reeds or whatever it is growing there, the dead sort of wood, or at least the new growth, and have a look at simply the textures in there, the patterns. You know, have a good look, and if we zoom in a little bit more, we become aware of a whole lot of things. One, and what I'm gonna do now is get a little pencil or pen, and hopefully just to help point things out, I hope. But let's look at an area. Let's just look at that little area here and zoom into that if we can here, and just bring that over for you. Look at the rhythm and the pattern within these lines. Also, look at the beautiful harmony that we have. We have variations of ochres and siennas and browns of all sorts, and maybe greys, but all very closely harmonized. So there is a beauty in that, and there's an interest in that. Another thing that we could look at is the fact that there is a rhythm, if you like, to the thing. These lines, I'm just drawing these lines. There's a vertical sort of, or slightly diagonal thrust to these lines. I'm just going to undo that. But look, the barbed wire is cutting that way, also against that thrust. So there's a sort of a cross composition there. I'm going to zoom out a tiny little bit more so we can see that a bit better. So you can see that within that, there's incredible possibilities for painting and all sorts of composition and whatever. And yet, when we get out there, we're back to this, which is what we walked past. We can do that to any section of this. We could take, and I haven't really looked at this. This is almost the first time I've looked at this photograph. So, bear with me because I'm discovering as well. But I'm thinking, what about the top side here? What about having a closer look at what's going on along the edges here, where the horizon almost meets the sky. So if I zoom, or not zoom, but bring that down there, and there's a beautiful edge to that. If I take my little pencil again, I'm looking at this area just right here. So you can see the boat now actually, but there's a lovely crisp edge of green there, just along the here, against a beautiful soft blue turquoise color, and then here like a cerulean blue. So look at the color harmony that exists within green to blue there, just across that section. And again, I'm gonna zoom in. I know it can become a little pixelated when we zoom in, but let's do it, And in reality, I can do this with my eyes. If I was out there and took time to focus in this little corner of the landscape, I would see that. I wouldn't necessarily need to do this digitally. We can see it if we take time to see it. So that there are thousands and thousands of possibilities within this photograph in terms of things of beauty, things of interest. Even a very simple thing that I noticed was, unfortunately, down the bottom there's a little packet that some stupid person, beg your pardon, has left a little blue bag for sweets or something. But if we were trying to remove ourselves from the feeling about that, look at the fleck of blue, the intensity of that blue surrounded by the subtle colors. So in other words, if we look at, we've just said how beautiful the subtle colors are. If I'm circling this area here, the browns and ochres and siennas, and then suddenly amongst that, there's this accent of blue. Now we would rather it wasn't there because it's litter, but if we're looking at for visual things, there is one. And maybe it tells a story. In there, perhaps, is a painting. Frame that up there, look, which says a lot maybe about our society today. And this is just me looking at a photograph that I didn't even know I took. So what I want to do now is I'm going to stop this for a second. I'm going to go and find the second, another photograph. Look at this, a piece of grass. I remember pointing the camera roughly at the ground at one point. And of course, this is what I'm going to get. But look at, again, this. We very often walk along with our eyes down at the ground. I see a lot of people doing that. I see a lot of people walking along with their eyes on their phones, which disturbs me sometimes. But anyway, but certainly people, we walk along, we look towards the ground, but we don't look at the ground. Our eyes are just dropped because, I don't know, maybe we're deep in thought or something like that, which is fair enough. But suddenly now look at what happens when we actually look at something, So let's zoom in again. Obviously, the first thing is this lovely surface texture that we've got here, which is fantastic. And again, we have this lovely harmony that's going on in color, earth colors, subtle greens, very, very light colors. Look at those greens. They're not lime green. They're very, very subtle, creamy colors and all sorts. And sometimes we think, oh, grass, I'm going to paint some grass. And what we do, we bring out Viridian green or sap green or something. But tell me how much sap green you see really in this particular section here. So you've fantastic music going on with color. Again, I think I would say that there are rhythms in it. The way maybe footprints have made it. There is a, so I'll just get a nice light color here so we can see. I'm going to draw, there's a line, or there's a rhythm, there's a pattern there and there where there's marks. And along the dark edge of that shadow there's a mark. And along that edge, maybe curves around, that's quite nice. And there's a sort of horseshoe shape, it might literally be a horseshoe. But look at the rhythms within those bits of grass there. So again, we could examine this little piece for a very, very long time. I'm going to come out a wee bit more. And I'll look at one last one because it's very easy to you know, get quite carried away with these things. But I think this is the last one here. Bring this one up. Similar to the first one in some respects, but you have this beautiful, very light ochre sort of color going on in this picture. So again, if I'm just using my pen here to indicate things for you. I mean, you have the edge there along where the green meets the ochre strip. Then you have the ochre sort of strip there. Then you have this more broken area. And then, of course, the flash of yellow here, right there. But the camera was obviously in an angle, but that makes it interesting because there's an interesting rhythm going on. In fact, you can see a dark shadow going through the grass there and again there. So there's almost a radiating thing going on from this little point outwards. And again, along the hedgerow at the back, look, there. So there's an abstract sort of composition in that little arrangement because I've just bothered to take time and look for something. So what I'm urging you to do is when you're out there walking, look. I always say, don't look at the world, look into the world. And all it takes from you is a bit of time. You must take time. You must stop moving and consider what's in front of you. And that's not an easy habit to get into. We live in a society that doesn't encourage that because things have to be done. But you unfortunately can't create until you stop and consider, I believe. So I hope that little, try that out. You can try it with your camera. Most people would have a camera now or access to one. Most people, you can take a photograph and bring it home and have a look at it, and you can zoom in just by dragging your thumbs on the screen most of the time. Simple thing like that. Take time, but better still, do it with your eyes when you're out there. That's the ideal. So you stop. Walk closer to something, walk physically closer, or try to zoom in your eyes to a certain section, but examine something for a moment or two, and you will begin to get a habit of seeing the world in a very, very different way.